Hi, I'm Patricia.
I'm Gabby, and our project is on LGBTQ inclusion and consent in sex education. So during this presentation, we're going to go over our goals and our project as a whole, and then sex education in the US in general, and then we'll move on to consent and inclusion, as well as our pamphlet that we made at the very end.
So first off, let's start with our project, what we did, and the sociological explanation. So for our project, we wanted to create an informational pamphlet and presentation that focused on LGBTQ+ representation instead of heteronormative sex and sexuality. Our goal was to create a pamphlet that was designed to be easily accessible, clear, and informative for high school students, while including key information such as consent, healthy relationships, STI prevention, and gender identity. By creating a pamphlet that focused on LGBTQ+ sex and sexuality, we could ensure that individuals felt seen, informed, and supported with resources that actually reflect their identities and experiences. So the sociological explanation: power, privilege, and oppression. The way that we view sex and our sexuality heavily draws from our cultural values, societal norms, and the way we approach taboo topics such as sex and sex education. This topic is sociological because it highlights how knowledge and feelings surrounding sex and sexuality are socially constructed and shaped by institutions such as school, religion, and the media in general. By choosing to not incorporate all-inclusive sex education for individuals, institutions reinforce inequality and heteronormativity as the standard for sex education, instead of recognizing the marginalized communities that are affected by the lack of knowledge and support, and who are often discriminated against or shamed for being different. So for our next section, let's get into sex education, what is taught, who is affected, and what research has found. So most of the studies on the sources of sexual health information have primarily focused only on heterosexual sex and sexuality, which disproportionately affects individuals who identify as LGBTQ+ or other gender and sexual minorities. When sex education is not inclusive, it increases health risks such as STIs, encourages bullying and discrimination, reinforces stigma and shame, and does not represent real-world diversity. Many sex education curriculums do not include information related to LGBTQ+ identities, leaving students with missing or inaccurate information about their bodies, relationships, and their needs. So who is affected? Well, LGBTQ+ youth were almost twice as likely to experience sexual coercion compared to heterosexual youth. Additionally, transgender youth were more than 3 times as likely to experience sexual coercion compared to cisgender youth. In every instance here, LGBTQ+ individuals are impacted the most. When sex education only addresses heterosexual relationships and cisgender identities, it reinforces the idea that these are the only normal experiences and contributes to stigma and misinformation. It also shapes environments where people feel excluded and invisible, which can affect their mental and physical well-being. So this is the University of Ottawa study. So in a study done by the University of Ottawa, participants completed measures of sexual health information sources, as well as self-efficacy, which is basically the knowledge, skills, and comfort with regards to sexual health practices. The findings of the study found that heterosexual participants obtained significantly more information from school, university courses, and less from educational websites and news outlets than LGBTQ+ participants. Heterosexual participants were significantly more confident in their sexual health practices than LGBTQ+ participants. This suggests that more LGBTQ+ representation and information should be integrated into sex education curricula.
In this section, I'm going to talk about consent and inclusion regarding LGBTQ+ students. And what that means, I'm just going to go over what it is, how it can be impactful, and why it is important to talk about. Consent is a key element in understanding how sexual contact should be conducted. Yet attention to consent is scarce among lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, and other sexually minoritized students. While sex education curriculums do cover consent, they discuss it in a way that is centered around heteronormative relationships. It is important for curriculums to include LGBTQ+ relationships in those discussions. By explicitly including LGBTQ+ examples, Schools ensure that all students can learn about healthy boundaries, navigate their own identities, and challenge harmful norms or stereotypes. Here there are examples of what consent can look like and what is not consent, and that should be taught to students regardless of their sexual orientation. Inclusive sex ed programs have a variety of positive benefits. One of those benefits is the fact that LGBTQ inclusive curriculums has been linked to an increased well-being among LGBTQ students. Meanwhile, a non-inclusive curriculum reinforces gender stereotypes and cultivates a hostile school environment, especially for queer students. One study that backs up these facts is the Chicago study. This study took place in the Chicago public school system, where they mandated an inclusive sex ed curriculum. Researchers then looked at how the inclusive curriculum impacted students who identify as LGBTQ+, and the student body as a whole. The results from this study show that inclusive sex education curriculums brought awareness and diminished homophobia and bias among students. Overall, inclusivity cultivates a more positive learning environment for all students, regardless on how they may identify.
Alright, so here's our pamphlet. First we have the outer page. By the way, these images will be linked alongside the video for a better view if you care to go and look at them and read through them. Alright, and here's our inner page. This has our research findings and also some resources alongside the side of the panel so that people can access them. Thank you! And here's our reference page.